Okay, so welcome again to our lesson on teaching strategies for teaching science. So today we will revisit on the different strategies and approaches that we can use in our science courses or lessons. So students' engagement is very important, and we need to understand that today's education had greatly put a lot of emphasis on allowing the kids to work collaboratively rather than spoon feeding. We also had a paradigm shift from the traditional approach to where we have these typical lecture methods that we will venture. So I'll be presenting to you 50 teaching science innovative strategies and approaches. So these are somehow applicable in the world of science. At the same time, these techniques can also be applied in the other concepts such as math or social studies or English. But nonetheless, we will do some virtual teaching scenario and simulation how these things can help us. Okay, so first we have the hands-on learning. So this is a best teaching strategy that was invented far in the 1500s, and this concept is still available this time, even if from different walks of life, from preschool to kindergarten and elementary, this strategy is very applicable. So in here, we allow schools for a very low cost apparatus in the classroom where students can explore for their different senses, and exploration is very important. As you can see on the picture I have here, my one of my student, we were exploring with um, arts, where we can also venture with science by mixing the colors and checking what will happen to them. On the other hand, there are also another hands-on learning activities provided for our students, like they shift on robotics. They have 3D structures, and some of them are also having familiar with smart boards, where in the Philippines we don't have those things yet. So first strategy, allowing the child to explore, since science is more on the exploration part. Next is students really love to hear stories, right? As I can read from your answers, from the reflection part where I asked there what lesson or concepts you had a trouble when you were still in your elementary years. So I had there a lot of stories regarding math, regarding science, where teachers were not able to put a relationship or really put a rapport with you. I also I am aware also that as a teacher, we can do something about it, and we are hopeful that we will not do no those things to our future students. Basin mo revenge mo. So yung mga estudyante, gipahirapan bi ako sa akong math teacher, ako sa niya pahirapan ako mga students. So it's not it's not a good thing to be revengeful somehow. We will change the lives of our students. Now, going back to storytelling, who among you love stories? Murag, everyone is a storyteller, right? And kids would basically love stories, especially for preschool and special education. Now, in biology and the laws of physics, we can use these things by a form of stories, and these can also be applicable in our real life situations, like when we venture in cooking, or when we use materials, or we visited different landforms, can also be part of our stories. Another thing is that some teachers also present the whole concepts that we have in an open-ended question with these stories, or sometimes we close our session with a story, right? Next is role play. So role play can be part of the integral education for science, which involves our intellectual and physical concepts. Just like you can have a role play regarding how Einstein had discovered the EMC squared, or the relativity and radioactivity elements that was being discovered. A lot of stories that we can partake also in role play is we allow these little materials like formation of atoms, SPDF in our chemistry, the laws of physics, and how distance and time can evolve. And for young children, it's in grade 3 that science is taught as a subject. But with the concepts in preschool, grades 1 and 2, they are integrated or it's a thematic approach. Now, number 4 is another activity we can associate for teaching strategies is sports-based learning. So this can be play-based. It can also be with the use of football to determine the probability of physics, or we can also allow the kids to have physical activities. Question: do you also remember? Can you remember activities where you had a little game or sports when you learned the concepts in physics or chemistry? Can someone share?
Yes, miss.
Yes, please.
Kometa, miss.
Yes, Eliza.
Sa ang science una miss kay kanang ipahimo mi og kana ganing water rocket miss. Makita man guro mo sa field ana.
Yes, I
Ang
saw
buhaton
before.
nila. O miss, mauna among buhaton term miss every science na mo. Murag para lang maibaw na mo mga kana ganing mga estimation sa science miss.
Okay, thank you, Eliza. I really look forward every time the science department would have those activities kay the kid kay mag-observe, the kid kay mo-watch, and it's like it's really interactive and engaging. Okay, who else wants to share? Okay, sige, maybe later you will have other stories. So in preschool, I usually have the mixture of, like, I know you have this one. If you combined oil and water, and there's this certain medicine where it bubbles and it creates an illusion regarding mixing water and oil, and it amazes young children. And there are a lot of activities or experiments that we can use in preschool or even in the early childhood for experimenting and learning the concepts in science. And in another picture, as you can see, we are trying to estimate here regarding the weight. So the light cups to the heavy cups, will it be able to hold or withstand for a long time with this kind of demonstration? So there are many activities that we can engage with our student, and one of the famous activity is the volcano, where we mix baking soda or baking uh, powder to a vinegar. Did you try that one when you were still children or even up to now? Reaction of the bubbles with vinegar. Another thing is kana kung mag-usik-usik, Pepsi, and then you put a little Mentos, and then it will explode. So, usually I have, 'di ba? Nakatry mo ana?
Yes po.
Ano lang siya, may pagka-kamahalan. May mag-usik-usik ka sa kuan. So that is why when you drink Coke or soda and you are trying to eat with menthol or something minty, it creates a bubbling reaction on your mouth. It's quite dangerous. Next is we are exposed to this one. We have visual cues around in our classrooms. It can be auditory or it can also be visual. So we do have presentation where we allow the kids to explore the materials that they can see in your classroom. So this can be drawings, this can be diagrams or pictures to help them remember the concepts. So we have this one in our classrooms, right? We have some body parts, or for preschool they have different kinds of animals or flowers, so we can have this in national bookstore, or kung gusto mo sa Visayan, it's only 5 pesos per chart, or if nindot-nindot nga chart 35 to 50, but in national bookstore mas mo mahal. But if you want it to be conceptualized, you can just print your own in your own household or printer. With these concepts, the visual cues, they really help the children to visualize and to imagine those concepts in math, like math and same time in science. And it also should be provided with the necessary information where they can remember with just those glancing and checking on the walls that they can have. Another is we also have instructional conversation. So instructional conversation includes some lectures or maybe there are concepts that the child will be able to explain. So these terms or scientific terms can also be one of the strategy that the teacher can hold in her classroom. This science text cards, it's the same with the charts, but this one is includes like serration or you need to sequence them or there's like true or false. We actually have so many like this in our elementary years and for preschool also. Like, diba, can you remember if you had to sequence the cycle of which came first with the life cycle of the butterfly or the life cycle of um, a chicken? Or how about you? What are those science text cards that you were exposed when you were younger? What can you remember?
Excuse me, Teacher Nat.
Yes,
Kuan ka nang pa-accept daw si Jess sa Teacher Nat.
nawala si Jessa.
Wala pa siya nakasud.